Hi everyone, today we are going to go through some orchestra warm-ups. And these are a great thing to do to start a practice session, or if you want to pick a day to just go through these. I think these are excellent exercises to do. On the screen, you'll see a copy of the score. I'm going to keep that up here while we go through this. And you can find your line, so violin, viola, cello, and bass. But if you'd like a part that has just your instrument, like this, here's the violin part. You can go to the Google Classroom, and I have versions for each instrument up there. And I should thank the Florida Orchestra who shared these warm-ups online for free. So let's go through some of these. We actually are going to skip the first one. The first one is basically if we were in a whole group playing our open strings, making sure we are in tune with one another. We are going to skip that, but obviously use a tuner before you do these. And we're going to move to number 2, bow warm-up number 2. This is a great exercise to work on. The fancy music word for it is subdivision, which means we're taking our rhythms, our different note values, and splitting them up into smaller and smaller bits. So as you can see, we start with whole notes, 4-beat notes. Then we move to 2-beat notes, half notes. Then the quarter notes, 1 beat. Then eighth notes, and then 16th notes. Okay? If we're going to count this out, you would make sure you gave each note the correct number of beats, but when you got to the eighth notes, remember we count those 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then when you get to the 16th notes, we call them 1E and 2E and Okay, so I'm going to count through this once, and then we'll play it together. So here's what number 2 would sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1E and a 2E and a 3, 4. Right, this last half note is long. This is all on your open D string, so you can focus on playing those notes and not so much worry about the notes that you're playing. So I'll set my bow on the D string. Ready, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1E and a 2E and a 3, 4. Okay, nice job with that. Let's keep going here to number 3. This is the G major finger pattern. So they're going to start going through different keys, different scales, and playing exercises in those keys. So this is in the key of G major. Remember, a G major has just an F sharp. So that means if we come across any Cs, they are going to be natural. I'm going to, again, remember I'm playing this just on the violin, but for every instrument, your pitches will sound the same. They just might be higher or lower depending on which instrument you play. So we're going to go through this. This is a great one to work on if you are struggling with your reading notes on G for everybody. I know for violin and viola, they sometimes tend to be challenging notes to read. So this is a good one to go through if you're working on that. Here's number 3. Ready, here we go. Awesome. Now, if we move, sorry, my mouse kind of moved there. That's why that window popped up. If we move down to number 4, this is the D major finger pattern. You're going to notice this exercise is the same thing, just in the key of D major. So it's the same pattern of notes, just with a different starting note. So the key of D major has F sharp and C sharp now. This one should probably be a little bit easier than the last one for most of you. So here's number 4, the D major finger patterns. Here we go. And then I'm going to move down to number 5. This is A major finger pattern. So again, this key is F sharps, C sharps, and G sharps. For the most part, we've avoided having any of those weird like low 2s or high 3s or anything like that. For this one, the bass has to pop down to their open A string. So it's a little bit different for bass. Remember, you have C sharp, so it's going to be 4 fingers, not 2 fingers. But everyone else, this should be pretty comfortable. It's just on the A string. Violas, you do have to use 4 fingers to get this high E. And cellos, you'll have to shift to get this high E. Okay? So let's take a look at number 5. Ready? Here we go. Good. In violins, it wouldn't hurt to use your 4th finger for that one too. You can play open E, but it's good to practice using your 4th finger. All right, now we move to warm-up 6. This is F sharp versus F natural. Now, depending on how long you've been playing, this could be super easy for you, or it could be something that's still a challenge. So I want to go through it to make sure we're on the same page of what this is asking. Our key signature over here says that we are in the key of D major. We have F sharps and C sharps. Okay, that means that when we play these notes, D, E, F sharp, this for everyone is the note is an F sharp. We know it's sharp because the key signature has said all of your Fs are sharp. However, as we keep going, this note right here is an accidental, which doesn't mean it was a mistake or an accident. It means that the composer, the person who wrote the music, wanted us to play an F natural. So we have to remember how to play that note F natural. If you're a violin or a viola, you take your 2nd finger, and instead of playing with a space between 1 and 2, you back it up and play F naturals. Okay. If you're a cello, instead of playing 3 fingers, you switch to 2. Okay. And same thing with bass. If you're a bass, you go from playing 4 fingers to 2. Okay. And you should be able to hear a difference between the F sharp and the F natural. When we play this, there is a repeat. So we're going to do these 2 measures twice and then move on. Okay. So here's number 6. Ready, here we go. Repeat. Sharp. Now it's natural. F sharp. Good. So that's a really good one to practice the difference between the F naturals and the F sharps. That's a really important skill to have. Let me just silence my phone here. I forgot to do that before I started recording. There we go. Much better. Moving on to number 7. This is identical to what we just did, but instead of F sharps and F naturals, we have C sharps and C naturals. So we should be able to just go for this one pretty easily. Remembering that repeat in the middle. Ready, here we go. Now, this might be a new note for some of you. Others already have learned how to do this. This is the note E flat. Remember, sharp means to make something higher, flat means to make something lower. So to play an E flat, and interestingly, it's the same for every instrument, you're going to take your 1st finger on the D string and you're going to back it up to make it lower. So on a violin or a viola, you have your 1st finger here and you're going to back it up to make it an E flat. Same idea with cello and bass, except it's just this way. Here's your E, E flat is back here. So here you're going to get to move your 1st finger back and forth to hear the difference between the E natural and the E flat. Okay. Remember, when there isn't anything marked next to the note, it's an E natural. When the flat is next to it, then it's flat. And I should point out in this measure, in the 3rd measure, The first E is marked as flat. The second E isn't, but there's a rule in music that if one note is marked as an accidental, sharp, or flat, or natural in a measure, it stays that way through the whole measure. So this is still flat for everybody, this E, but then when we get to the next measure, this is natural. I know that's a little bit confusing, but that's a rule that will be consistent all the way through your time playing music, so it's good to learn that now. So here's Etude 8, or Exercise 8. Ready? Here we go. Regular one. Now low one. Keep it low. Still low. Now natural. Here's the flat. Awesome. Next one is the same thing, but with B flat. So as you can imagine, the E flat, we took our first finger for E and just moved it back. It's the same thing with B flat, with the exception of bass, which is playing on the A string, and your B flat is oh no, that's true. It's still a low one. Sorry about that. It's still low one for the bass. So everyone, first finger B, back it up, makes it a B flat. Okay, here's number 9. Ready, and awesome. We are going to skip number 10 because number 10 uses a technique we haven't learned yet together, and I'd rather not teach it to you over the computer and would rather do it in person. So we're going to skip number 10 and go to 11. 11 uses something called hooked bowings, which many of you have probably seen before. A hooked bowing looks like a slur, but you can see it has these 2 little dots underneath each note. So normally a slur would be smooth. You would connect 2 notes like this. If you're doing a hooked bowing, you would go in the same direction, just like how the slur was, but instead of making it smooth, you would actually stop your bow in between, like this. Okay, so instead of a slur, it's... And the same thing works with up bows, too. You can do a slur, or you can do hooked bowing. Okay? This works particularly well in here when we're hooking the same note, right? You can't slur 2 Ds together. It doesn't really work that way. It would just be like playing one long D. But when you do the hooked bowing, you're doing 2 Ds, but in the same direction. So instead of going like this, you're going to go. Okay, so this whole exercise will be down, down, up, up, like that. And we're going to make sure that we really do stop our bow in between. That's one of the key characteristics of doing the hooked bowing. Okay, so here's number 11. Ready, here we go. Would be a good one to go back and really make sure you are doing the correct bow directions. It's easy to do that one incorrectly and not realize it. Now we're moving into some different scale warm-ups. Okay, these are good probably for the 6th and 7th and 8th graders. 5th graders, we haven't quite gotten this far yet, so I would say stick with the exercises that we've just did up till number 11. But for the middle schoolers, now we're looking at different key signatures. So we're having to adjust if we have high 2s, low 2s. For cello and bass, is it 2nd finger, is it 3rd finger, is it 4th finger? And so we're starting in the key of C major. Remember, C major doesn't have any sharps or any flats. And so when we're thinking about in violin and viola terms, if you're on the D string, it's going to be low 2 F natural. If you're on the A string, it's going to be low 2 C natural. Cellos, you're going to have 2 fingers for your F natural, 2 fingers for your C natural. And let's see, bass, same idea, 2 fingers for your F natural. And you do have to shift up for that C. But it is a natural, not a sharp. So I'm going to play through number 12 now. Okay, this, by the way, starts with a regular old C major scale, and then there's a little arpeggio at the end. And all of these should sound the same, just like those earlier exercises. just in different keys with different starting pitches. So here's number 12. Here we go. Okay, if something sounded funky in there, it was most likely the F natural and C natural might not have been low enough. Now we're moving on to the key of G major, which has an F sharp in it. Okay, violins, you can choose to either start on the open G string or 3 fingers. The top version is the one that's a little bit more challenging because it has low 2s on the E string. I'm going to play the lower version because it's closer to what everyone else has. So I'm going to start on my open G string. Ready, here we go. Very nice. By the way, violins, if you did the top version, we're listening for a nice low 2 on the E string. That's the thing that makes that a little bit more challenging. Moving on to the key of D major, F sharps and C sharps. This should probably be the easiest out of all of them for everybody, so I'm just going to go for it. Cellos, if you want a challenge, you can pick the bottom line. This would use extended 4, stretching your 4th finger to get these F sharps on the C string. So this would be the challenge version for cello. Everyone else, it's pretty straightforward, just starting on open D. Okay, here we go. Ready, here we go. Moving on to the key of A major, this has F sharps, C sharps, and G sharps. In this case, the top line for the violins is actually the easier part. The bottom line is the more challenging part, and it's closer to what everyone else has, so we're going to go with that one. In this key, because we're starting with first finger on the G string for everyone except cello or except bass, who's starting on open A, you're going to have to make sure that you stretch to get the C sharp on the G string and stretch to get the G sharp on the D string. So for violins and violas, that means a high 3. For cellos, that means an extended 4. And actually, you're doing that extended position that we worked on where you play A with your first finger, you stretch to play the B, which would normally be 3 fingers, but you play it with 2. And then you can stretch even further to get that C sharp, with your 4th finger. Okay, so 1, stretch, 2, stretch, 4, that extended position. I know we just started working on that before we went on, before we're out of school, but it's still a good thing to work on from home. So I'm going to play the lower version for the violins, starting on that low A. Ready, here we go. Again, if it sounds a little weird, probably not stretching high enough with the 3. If it sounds like this, that means you're not reaching high enough with your 3rd or 4th finger, depending on what instrument you're playing. Okay, and last but not least, the key of F. The key of F has a B flat in it. This one's a little bit more challenging, but it's still a good one to try, especially those of you who played a piece earlier this year that had flats in it. We've already kind of practiced doing this. The B flats, if you are a violin, are going to be your low 1 on the A string here, and then when we get up to our high F, this is a low 1 on the E string. Remember, F natural on the E string is a low 1. Violas, you're starting 3 fingers on the C string, so your B flat is here, low 2. And then this F is an F natural low 2. Cellos, you're starting 4 fingers on the C string. So your B flat is 2 fingers right here, and F natural, 2 fingers right here. And bass, you are starting low 1 for F natural on the E string. And then you have a B flat low 1 right here as well. Okay? So here is the F major warm-up. Ready? Here we go. And then the last thing on this warm-up sheet is this chorale in G major. I might do a separate video showing you all of the parts sound like together, just because everyone's part is a little bit different in this, so I don't want to spend time going through each part. This would be a good thing to work on your own, and then when I send out the full recording of everything at once, you can play along with it. It will kind of be like playing in the orchestra. And that is it for this. So I hope that these warm-ups were helpful to you. What I would suggest doing is maybe a couple of times each week you can go through these. And if you have questions about certain ones, if you want to record the one that you're having a hard time with and send me a video, I can get back to you with some suggestions for how to get better with them. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys hand in, and have a good time with practicing these.